Unmute. Welcome, everybody, to the Resistance broadcast. I'm John. Thank you for joining us on this Thursday, our final episode of January, our final live episode in January 2023. So we are marching closer to The Mandalorian, but we're not talking a lot about The Mandalorian on this episode. There's a lot of other Star Wars news that we're going to tackle. There's actually a real crazy amount of stuff to talk about, and a central theme is actors wanting to come back to Star Wars. So something we haven't really heard a lot of in the past few years. Usually it's been, I'm all good, I'm done, put cash in my chips in, I'm out, I'm gonna go do Marvel. Nope, there's people saying like, I want back in. Give me a call, I need work, let's make a season 2, let's make Solo 2 happen, whatever. And we're here to talk about all that stuff and more. So I'm John, that's James, that's Lacey. It's a good time to be a Star Wars fan. I don't know, I feel good about the stories we're going to talk about today. So we want to thank everybody for joining us live. If you are with us live, if you are listening on your favorite podcast app, thank you for that as well. And on that theme, I just want to say thank you to everybody who, whether you use Spotify or not, you got us over the 400 mark for Spotify ratings. We're now at 409, I believe. We got to be one of the top for Star Wars podcasts on there right now, and we're seeing it because more people are coming over there from the audio perspective, new listeners and stuff like that. So thank you very much, because it takes 2 seconds. If you have Spotify, you just pull up your phone, pull up your Spotify, find us, and hit 5 stars, hopefully 5 stars.
I have to use my phone.
Yeah, and then it helps us show up in more searches and stuff like that. So thank you all so much. If you are joining us live in the live chat, don't forget, we're going to have Ask the Resistance at the end of the show. We'll query you for those questions a little bit later for the hashtag, so we know that you want that question to be discussed on the show. But if you are watching, that means you like our channel, hopefully. So make sure you subscribe to the channel, youtube.com/@the-resistance broadcast. And the last plug is just if you want to save money type of thing. We know times are tough. Eggs are expensive. Star Wars items could be less expensive. Because our friends at Gentle Giant gave us partnered with us for a promotional code for 20% off any in-stock item on their site. Just use the code RESIST20 at checkout. So James, Lacey, we are here to talk about these actors coming back. But before we do that, James, you did your review of Bad Batch episode 5. Just give people a little tease if they haven't had a chance to watch your review of your few sentences, your thoughts on that episode as we march into the meat of this season 2.
Bum, ba, bum, bum,
Little indie,
Indiana Jones style adventure on the latest episode, and I was here for it. I'm always gonna have my little things here and there that I'm like, well, that doesn't make a lot of sense. But as far as like visuals and music and just intrigue and curiosity of where the things are gonna go, even if characters that are sort of new to the show that you're like, I don't know if that person's good, bad, what's going on. So I personally felt like it was another fun episode of the Bad Batch, while still being an episode that doesn't necessarily have to like move the needle in a huge way on like character development or big, like, headed towards the rebellion or anything like that,
Do you still feel in your heart that this is going to be the last season of Bad Batch?
I don't know. I don't really think about that much, but I think I've said that before, that 2 seasons felt right. Because I don't want, as much as people do like it, I think people, it's like a concert that you're like, okay, I love this person, but I kind of want this to be done. I kind of want I want this to be over. I want this experience to end. So I don't want Bad Batch to drag on either. It's not like it's this massive hit or anything. So,
all right.
I mean, I think people like it, but yeah. So,
Lacey, you and McGregor did an interview recently with, I believe, Eric Davis from Fandango, if I'm correct on that, via like some website that's officially tied to the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, and Alden. We'll talk about that later. But Hayden Christensen was there too.
He's got Alden on the brain, folks.
Yeah, well, I got the shirt. I'm feeling good. When your lead actor takes the charge, but we'll get to that in a minute. But he's again doing that whole thing where he's just getting it out there. And every few months when he gets interviewed or he gets a chance to talk about it, he said he wants to do more Obi-Wan. So what do you think on that? Now that Obi-Wan's been out and we've seen Andor come out, I feel like some people have soured on Obi-Wan, but not because of Ewan or the story, but because of maybe the budget. Do you think that it's still realistic that we might get a second season of Obi-Wan? And do you want it just because of how much Ewan wants it? Where are you at with what his feelings on it?
So I think poor Ewan had to spend 6 to 8 years saying he would love to, I haven't heard anything about that. And now
Yeah.
he's allowed to talk about it as much as he wants because it's out there.
Yeah. Right.
So talk away, Ewan. You're allowed to talk about it. Do I think it's going to happen? At this point, no, I don't think it is.
Okay.
It's not from me not wanting it. I just think that from Deborah Chow just being like, this was supposed to be a one-time thing. Then we talked to Natalie Holt here on the show, who's the composer of it. And she was just like, yeah, they told me it was a one-time thing. It just seems very much like they told their story and that's it. However, if it made them money, then they'll do it again. And I don't know if it did.
Yeah,
I mean, Disney lost, I think today it was announced they lost $120 billion last year. So I'm sure they're making cuts, which is concerning. And the question is, how are those plans going to change eventually? Yeah,
I mean, it's hard for me to they could do the Qui-Gon thing, but who's their antagonist? Do they try to do a Maul thing like James had suggested they could do, which I think would be the only path. You can't bring Vader back in my opinion, in terms of like him and Obi-Wan. You could bring him back, but have them separated maybe. I think the way that show ended,
it ended in a really good spot.
If you bring Vader back in, it's just like, oh, that even the diehard heart of fans like us would be like, come on, that's enough. Like that's So yeah. I don't know how I feel about it. I think if they announce it and they give us a real good story, it might be something to think about. But we'll see. I love him as Obi-Wan, but he's played Obi-Wan a lot, so we'll see.
It's just got to make sense for the story. Is where I stand. However, I love hearing him talk about it. So talk away.
Yeah, for sure. But that is sort of the theme of a lot of the stories we're going to get into right now, James, right? In the the Resistance Report.
It's the Resistance.
Well, John said Alden earlier because he is all over this story, I think, as you can tell by his shirt.
What's funny? I have the Make Slow to Happen shirt next to me, and I thought for some reason we were doing a different episode before this one, so I was like, "Oh, I'll wear this shirt, and then I'll switch," and then here I am.
Completely unrelated. I am wearing it under the sweatshirt.
Oh, nice. But yeah, it's right next to me.
Look, James, look, it's me.
Oh, it's you. It's
and
exactly you.
And that's me again.
I can almost not make out the difference.
I'm not making out with myself. Is that what you're asking?
No,
Alden Ehrenreich.
Go ahead, James.
Doing some interviews, one of which was with IndieWire, and as most things go when they're related to Star Wars, they're going to ask about their time there, and how Alden would feel about the possibility of returning to that franchise, those stories again. And this, to be honest, it's not something he hasn't said before, but it's always exciting to hear anybody come back to that same thing again, saying, and this is his quote, "The story that I did, I really got to be Han at the end. It's kind of like, or that's kind of the arc of the story, which I thought was well done. That's the fun part. That's the guy that's the most fun to be. I'd be very happy to, but who knows?" Is that what he, is what he was saying about possibly coming back. And I think like we would all be very excited if he did. And I don't know, John, I'll let you get started on this one, but why is it different this time for you hearing him restate this?
Well, we got we hit the reset button on like the "it's not going to happen" clock. And it's like when you have the lead actor, like it's one thing for, Jonas or Aaron Kellyman or even like Ron Howard to say like, well, I'd love to, but it's not up to me and stuff. But when you have the lead actor coming out, this is like sort of like Ewan McGregor, we had the lead actor coming out and saying, I'd love to come back. But not only that, because he could have given like the one line thing, like Daisy, like we'll get to in a minute, like Daisy Ridley's like comments, but he elaborated on what he would do with the character. So it's already like he's clearly already had those discussions when they were making Solo of like, this is where you're going in the first one. In the second one, by the end of the first one, you're going to be that Han Solo that's really like jaded and you're out for yourself and your only person you trust is Chewie. And then we're going to take it and expand upon that in the second one. And then obviously we saw what happened, but he still remembers that. And anytime he talks about it, he talks about the fact that he loved getting to that point. That was the arc. And now he gets to play with Han sort of being that jerk Han Solo, which is like that swagger Han that we get from Solo, but now he's not really worrying about Akira or anybody else, Beckett. It's just him and Chewie, and that's it. And I like the fact that not only is he saying, I'd be very happy to come back, not one of those like, well, like, he's like, no, I'd be very happy to come back and do it. He has already an idea of what he would like to do with it. And the most important thing is that he's saying it right now in 2023. I think that's really cool. And I know like age might get a little tricky in a few years, but we were talking about it, Diego Luna is in his 40s playing someone in their 20s or whatever, he's supposed to be. So,
Right.
And he's a young looking guy. You might be muted, James. I'm not sure, but
I was, yeah, because it's him.
Unmute.
It's believable.
Yeah.
Right.
No, yeah, exactly. And he looks on the younger side, so I don't think that'd be an issue either. And then you just start thinking about it. If you have your lead guy saying it, it's harder for detractors to hate on it, because I think as time goes on, more and more people are enjoying that movie. And anytime people talk about more Solo, there's a couple of like, it sucked, blah, blah, blah. There's really not. It's usually pretty positive still. And
People become box office experts as soon as Solo pops into any.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, you look at Willow, and that movie didn't make money, and they made a follow-up series to that. And there's a lot of other examples of things like Andor, I think was the least watched Star Wars series on Disney Plus so far, and that might have had the highest budget, and they're making a season 2 of that. So it's not completely out of the question. The question is, what do they do with it? And I keep pointing, like I did on our shorts. We're on TikTok now. For people who don't know, TRB podcasts, and our shorts on YouTube. But I keep mentioning like Donald Glover keeps like pushing them aside, and you have the Han Solo saying like, I want in. So why not take that Lando series, rework it? You can have Lando in it when he's available. Maybe do an episode or two where he's in the mix, like Lando should be anyway. He's a supporting character of a supporting character in Star Wars. And then make it, bring Kira in, bring Enfys Nest in, and make it this true Solo follow-up, Jabba the Hutt, all that stuff. The more I think about it, I think it'd be a really cool adventure series and something they could do, and people would watch it, in my opinion. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I think people would watch that show. I think it'd be a lot of fun. And if you juxtapose that against something like an Andor, which is darker, more serious, you take us on adventure smuggler series in the galaxy with Han Solo and Chewie, I think people would really enjoy that.
Mm-hmm. Lacey, any thoughts on Alden's comments? Some more recent ones, at least.
I'm pretty pumped about it. I knew I definitely was like, I squealed and like did one of these, like, yay! I'm so excited that he said something, because you hope and wish for something and you talk about it all the time to the point that people are like, stop talking about it, but you keep talking about it anyway. And then you hear the person that is pretty much the number one person that needs to be involved saying, yes, of course I do. And this is my plan. It means that it's in his head. He knows what's going on. He knows that Make Solo 2 happen is a thing, because people have mentioned it to him before and he knew about it. I find it interesting that he started an Instagram recently and Daisy came back to Instagram, and we live in this age of the internet where fans can save things. They can save TV shows. They can create new movies. They can have a say in advertising. You can have a say in what a character looks like Sonic the Hedgehog. That I can't ever deny the power of people just saying, hey, I want blank. So I think actors and any type of influencer, CEO, whatever, knows that. And in Alden's position, it only makes sense to put the feelers out, especially if he really wants to do it, because it's not hurting anything by doing it, and it's just kind of keeping that flame going, which we spoke to Jonas at Star Wars Celebration last year, and he said, you guys are amazing, like keep this going, like please don't stop
Yeah.
talking about it, because that's what's gonna make it happen, pun intended. It's gonna make it happen is if we keep talking about it and keep kind of pushing for what we'd hope to see the continuation. It's just a very interesting time to be a fan of anything in pop culture, because I feel like you just see shows bouncing around networks, going from TV to streaming service, or going from streaming service to TV, and then you have things going to the movies and movies going to TV. It's all over the place. So I don't think we're ever going to be in a place of like never say never, but it's very interesting that these people are getting more and more into it, and they keep bringing it up, especially John Kasdan, and Ron Howard keeps getting asked about it. Look, we all really want it to happen, but like the three of us definitely, like, we don't even know what we'd do if they finally announced it. Like, we'd probably lose it. I would be sobbing. It would be amazing.
Oh, I'd be so happy for them, because that was their plan.
For Jonas and Alden and John Kasdan, it would just be an incredible journey, I think, as fandom, that we took something that was seemingly a negative thing for Disney and a negative thing among fans, and totally flipped it around and said, no, we like this, we want it, and we want more of it. And then for it to actually to come into fruition and have Alden say this, to back that fruition, would be incredible. And it's what you dream of as a fan. You know, you just want to see them succeed and be happy. And that's what we're seeing when he says stuff like this.
Mm-hmm.
James, real quick, isn't that the theme that we keep getting from them, though? Like Rob Bordeaux, head of ILM, saying like the fans have brought things back before. Like they keep saying that type of phrase about the fans. Ron Howard said it. Jonas told us that, like Lacey just said. It's, and Kathleen Kennedy even said, like, we listen to the fans, and like she's the one who I'm like, oh, I hope so. But the other one, like the others are like, keep going. Rob Bordeaux said, keep going, and he's the head of ILM. So these aren't just like random people on Reddit. These are like people involved heavily with this studio saying like, keep banging the drum. And that's why we are,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the most interesting thing to me as far as hope is not even like a producer or an actor or somebody saying like that, just the sheer fact that like there's been a lot of Star Wars productions in the works. I think like let's go like extreme with it. Like if there was only one live action Star Wars project every 10 years, what are the chances that they're going to do Solo again, But it's like when you start adding up, like, well, they're doing like Mandalorian, they're doing Obi-Wan, they're doing The Acolyte, they're doing Skeleton Crew. Like, you start adding all that up. It's like, it almost feels at that point that you could take a risk on maybe it's not like a huge property. Like we tried Solo. It didn't really work on these levels, whatever the hesitation is. They could look at like, well, there is this pocket of Solo fans. We can afford to maybe do this show, for Disney Plus or this thing. And I think that cheering for all Star Wars is the best way to get whatever Star Wars project you're thinking you would like to see made. Because you want Bad Batch to succeed. You want Skeleton Crew to succeed, because that just proves that they can make more Star Wars projects. And the more Star Wars project there are, the more likelihood you have of one that you have a passionate, desire to see coming into fruition. So I don't know.
I have to say, people in the chat are talking about it being maybe announced at Celebration. I'll tell you right now, guys, if we're in that big panel and Alden walks out and they announce this, I actually might throw up. Like, I might cry.
I would just get up and walk over to the side of the stage and be like, we're here if you want us to walk up. Yeah. No.
Like, I'm obviously joking. I wouldn't throw up, but I definitely would start crying, and I definitely would start. My anxiety would go through the roof because I'd be so pumped. Like, even just thinking about it right now, my chest hurts. Like, the idea that this could happen, like, takes me to a level that, like, I couldn't even imagine. And it would
all just start barfing everywhere.
It would just be absolutely bananas.
It's like that Family Guy scene.
Yeah.
we're
Just
like
everyone in the audience. Blah.
we'd all just start throwing up.
And then it's like The Office, so then everybody else starts throwing up because they're like, I don't like when anybody throws
Yeah.
up.
But we're
Anyway.
like still pumping our fists while we're getting sick. We're like,
But let's move on to another person in the Star Wars world interested in coming back to this story, this world, this franchise. Daisy Ridley was also recently caught saying she'd be open to returning to Star Wars, right? She said the phone, they have my phone number. I'm open, call me if you want me to return. I'm down to return. And that sparked a frenzy of tweets and other social media posts of saying like, yes, this is good to hear. This is good and exciting. But not only that, she's been on the defense of Star Wars recently, coming back and saying, you hear these fan theories, and sometimes they're not even really accurate in this specific phase of saying J.J. Abrams like took the Rey Nobody story away and changed it. But she's like, but the Rey Nobody story was JJ's to begin with. So it's not like he took that away from Ryan. It's like he took what the story was and brought it to what he had been envisioning for Rey the entire time. So it's like, it's crazy. It's a crazy story. That one, by the way, came from Variety when she was doing a longer interview. But I don't know. What do you think of this, Lacey? You're probably the biggest Rey fan here. Maybe that's wrong. I don't know, John. Maybe I'm stepping on you there, but
that's probably fair.
But what are your thoughts about
Daisy fan.
Daisy saying she's going to return, and also the comments on J.J. Abrams and the retconning of the story?
So I would love for her to return. As we all know, she was recently at Lucasfilm once, if not a couple times. She claims it's for lunch, but that's a really long flight to go from England to San Francisco for lunch.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that she had also told another outlet at Sundance that she had heard that The Acolyte was really good. Which to me is like just a random kind of conversation to have. So it's like you start putting in your head like, okay, who could she possibly be talking to that would even know that? But that being said, I'm really happy for her that she's allowed to not allowed, but able to have these really positive, fun conversations about her experience within Star Wars. I think that she's one of those characters that definitely has gotten a lot of flack from all different types of people in fandom of being a Mary Sue and, oh, there's so many things wrong with her character and I don't like how this was handled. But that doesn't take away the performance that she gave or the passion that she has for the character or the fact that the character wouldn't be who they are without Daisy Ridley. So that being said, I am a little confused by her statement. I'm not saying that she doesn't know what she's talking about, because she definitely does. I'm just confused because I remember her saying in a separate interview that originally Rey was going to be a Kenobi, and that was what was hinted at after TFA, and then it became she was a nobody in The Last Jedi, and then it became the Palpatine thing in
Did she
The Rise of
she
Skywalker.
said Kenobi?
Yes, she said that to an interview with either Jimmy Fallon or Jimmy Kimmel.
Oh man, I remember
She had
her
mentioned like,
saying-
oh yeah, there was like a Kenobi thing that was said at one point. Like
Mhm.
she had mentioned the name, and I remember being like, oh my god, this is amazing, because that's
I
what I wanted.
I think at the end of the day, there was no JJ said this is going to be the story. Guys, get excited.
That's why I it's a little confusing. That being said, it doesn't take away what she's saying, which is it doesn't matter what the plan was. This is what the story ended up being, and I support whatever the story was. Whether it was this or that, I support it because it's, quote, above my pay grade to think otherwise. I'm there to stand there, say the lines, be the part. And this is not my story to tell. I just help tell it, which I really appreciated. The other thing that I really liked about this interview is that she goes into her advice for other actors in the Star Wars universe and how they should experience it. And she was basically like, look, you're going to have people that are going to say something about everything, which is basically what I was just saying before about like getting it from all types of people in fandom. It's just, you got to tune it out and just enjoy the ride because it's over quicker than you think. And I think I took that comment as also just like a personal life comment. Like you just have to tune out the negativity and just be who you want to be and like what you want to like, because there's always going to be someone that stands in your way or tries to knock you down, and there's no point in even giving them the time of day. So I really liked that. And then I also like that she kind of said about Amandla in The Acolyte that they could just, handle it the way they want to handle it. They've been acting forever, so they don't need any of my input, which I really love. She just always has this like little bit of dry English humor, which I truly appreciate. But as for her coming back, I'd really love to see it. I can't wait for the day that she does come back. I believe Daisy is going to come back sooner or later. There's no way that they, cast her at such a young age and had her be such a big character in the Star Wars universe and then never have her come back again. But yeah, that's what I think.
John?
Yeah, I mean, it's no surprise because that whole cast was very vocal about their support for J.J. Abrams and that sort of thing, and I think they were pretty tight-knit crew. The social media stuff, Variety, I think, took some liberties there and said like she left because of harassment, when I think she came out and said it wasn't because of that. She just didn't like it and didn't like spending her time on it or something. She even never went on record and said it was because of harassment. So I know Kelly Marie Tran did, but I think people mixed that up. And she did get, stuff and bad comments and stuff, but she said,
I think it was her own her mental health, and that she was focusing so much on social media, and she was just like, "Look, I just need to take a step back."
Yeah, she wasn't chased.
How many people
didn't
just
run away
quit?
from?
People quit Twitter all the time. They don't have to be a celebrity. They just quit because they're like,
and she came back. She's back on Instagram. Yeah.
In terms of like the whole Rey's parents thing, it's like it's exhausting to like think about because people are still really hung up on it, and that's fine, I think people would be better off if they moved on, because what we got is what we got, and that's the story, like she said. But I do like when she spoke to it, she rationalized it, saying like Rey nobody really is the same as Rey being a Palpatine, because your past, like Rey's past, regardless of what it was, did not matter.
Yep.
Because whether she was just two drunks kid from Jakku and they're buried in the desert somewhere, the Force still awakened in her and she went on that path. And then even so, by the same token, if she is from Palpatine, her past in that same different regard but same way doesn't define who she is. And I think that those are two powerful ways to think about it, because
the movie didn't end with her going, Rey who? And she goes, Rey Palpatine, I guess. That sucks. She didn't.
Yeah.
That
wouldn't have been good. Yeah, that would have been terrible. Yeah. So she's still Rey, like she's still Rey nobody, because that's what she thought she was. So the moment we meet her, she goes through 19 years of her life thinking she's nobody. So you still are that person. You're still shaped by your experience. So I think people get a little too hung up on that. And I think and I've said this before, as we go further and further down the line, as the years pass and stuff, and people watch that, or first watch The Force Awakens for the first time, and then watch the second one, then watch the third one, it's going to feel more cohesive because there isn't the discourse to make you think about, oh, then JJ did this to Ryan and Ryan did this to JJ. It's just, no, here's 7, here's 8, here's 9. That's the story. If you don't like it, don't watch it. There's plenty of movies I think are crap and I don't watch them. If you like it, watch it. You know what I'm saying?
Or try to like it. Like, or spend a little bit of an investment. If you like Star Wars that much, spend some time, think about it, try to understand the other perspective, and learn to like something, like an acquired taste sort of thing. Like, it's like, if you don't like coffee, don't drink it. Well, it's okay, but there are benefits. So maybe learn to like it, find some enjoyment, do a little bit of research and figure out what flavors you react well to and bad to. You know what I mean? Like, figure out what you like about Star Wars and keep and embrace those elements of the sequel trilogy.
Yeah, exactly. I did a thread not too long ago about like the things I love about The Rise of Skywalker, and even people who didn't like the movie are like, after I read that, there are a lot of cool things in that movie that I think about it. I'm like, well, yeah, there you go. It doesn't mean you like the movie, but there are things you can watch and be like, that's cool. I like that. That's cool. But, and I think the least like shocking or interesting part of this whole like 2-story thing is her saying she'd be open to returning, because I think if anyone's a lock to return one day, it's Daisy Ridley. Because
It's her, yeah, absolutely.
Kids fell in love with her. 5-year-olds who watched The Force Awakens. They watched like we watched. I watched Empire for the first time with my dad when I was 5, and Lacey watched the original trilogy after she got it at Stu Leonard's. And James, you got into it a little bit later, but once you did, you were like into it. You saw Revenge of the Sith with your brother, the last movies to come out, right? These kids had that experience, and it's Rey, and Rey's their Luke, and she's still very young, so they can wait if they want to. There's, like, in my opinion, like a book it situation here. I would give a 0% chance of her not returning. So I think, her being coy and saying like, I'm available, I'm a phone call away, like, yeah, you just went there. You were just there. You don't need to be called. You just yelled down the hall, hey, Daisy, while you're eating your Caesar salad, let's make a movie in a few years. It's like, yeah, all right, here we go.
I don't understand why all salads aren't made like Caesars. Put the dressing in,
Caesars.
shake it up, get the dressing on all the pieces, and then give me the house salad like that.
I'm new to the Caesar family, and I gotta say, yeah, I was never a big salad guy.
I eat salad at least, like, not even joking, like 6 times a week. I love salad.
Caesar salads, I'm in.
Caesar salad is my jam with chicken. Oof.
Gotta have croutons. I need croutons and cheese.
I think the interesting thing about this story is that we're getting into like what JJ really meant. Well, JJ's job, in my opinion, was to set it up. That was his whole thing. He wasn't supposed to finish it. He wasn't supposed to write the story. He wasn't supposed to do anything but come in and set up the story. And in that regard, I almost picture like a baseball story or something. Like a guy comes out, right? He's standing at the home plate. The whole crowd goes silent as they wait for him. He points to the stands or something like that, and he pulls it back, and then the pitcher throws the ball, and that's where the first movie ends. Okay. Well, now at that point, as the director of that movie, I'm sure that fans and the cast alike are going to start asking questions like, "Oh, is the pointing to the stands? Is that a reference to this baseball player? Like, is there a relation there? What's the story?" And he's like, "Maybe, I don't know. Maybe."
Look at our sports guy, Lacey. Look at our sports guy.
I was going to say Babe Ruth.
But he didn't say that. That's not necessarily in the story.
No, I got you.
Yeah, so it's like, you can hand it off to the next person and then make that character, strike out or hit the home run or whatever you want to do. But like his job when he was doing Force Awakens was to open up the door for all of the possibilities, whether she's a Kenobi, a Skywalker, a Palpatine, a nobody, whatever it is. And I think that all of those conversations probably got said by him, by other people involved in the movie making process, including the cast and fans as well. Everybody speculated on what all those possibilities could have been, and to some realistic standpoint, they were all possibilities. Yes, that was the point of the movie, is to hand it off to the next person, because I set up all of those possibilities. I did not give you one street to drive on.
Right.
So yeah, I think that's the main takeaway from me, is when she said this is part of it. And then Lacey, you point out in other interviews, there was conversation about Kenobi. Yeah, there probably was. I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it at all.
Yeah.
All the possibilities.
The sequel trilogy was like, Rey has her like learner's permit and she's figuring out how to drive. And by the end she gets her license. And now like the next series.
What is with these analogies tonight?
What's wrong with that? I think that's a perfectly good analogy.
Go ahead. I'm just saying, you guys are like, there's this guy, and then
Luke's Driving Academy.
Okay.
And then the next set of movies will be hers, because this was the passing of the baton trilogy. I think it would be
everybody's at a bar and they're all playing darts.
You know what I mean? Like it would be unfortunate if that was it for that story, because this was a like crossing of the paths and handing of the baton. Like they need their own run now without the blanket of Han, Leia, and Luke.
Yep.
Yeah.
Before we move on to the next story, Lacey, do we have any super chats?
We do have some super chats. So first up is Ryan WAARA. Thank you so much for the super chat. And I know he had mentioned in the chat that it was a little weird and he couldn't figure something out. But he then said, Daisy has to come back. I'd be more shocked if she didn't. I agree.
Exactly
Thank
right.
you so much, Ryan. Then we have Aaron with the super chat. Thank you so much, Aaron, who said, conversations like this is why I love watching you guys.
Ah, thanks,
Oh,
man.
thank you.
Thanks. That means a lot. So you like me talking about Daisy Ridley? Great. I'm now going to do a
Balanced,
podcast
apparently.
of just about Daisy. Anyway, the finale will be her coming on the episode. That'll be it. Anyway, Freezy 2324, thank you for the super chat. Wrote, do you think the mistakes of the sequel trilogy, starting with The Last Jedi, could be fixed via the World Between Worlds? I'm gonna let John start this because I know he hates the World Between Worlds.
All right, I don't hate the World Between Worlds. That's a little harsh.
Sorry, as a fixing. writing
Yeah,
tool.
I think people misunderstand what it is sometimes, including myself. But I just like it's a very you're playing with fire with that thing, and it's very dangerous, I think, with that storytelling device, and I think that's why Filoni wanted to like make it and break it. So I I don't think so. I don't know if this is coming from the angle of like Ben Solo's in the World Between Worlds, which I see on Twitter a lot, which that also doesn't make sense in my opinion.
I think just people don't have closure with Ben Solo. To be fair, I think his character didn't have good closure.
But you don't like it's like a portal to things that have happened. You know, I don't think it's like he died and then all of a sudden
Ahsoka got saved.
But from the living, she was alive and he pulled her out. It wasn't like she died and she was like people think.
But they could pull Ben through when he's alive.
Right, but I think people think he died and went there as a purgatory or something.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know.
But anyway, my opinion, the answer is no. But thank you very, very much, Freezy2324. Very kind, very appreciative of that. Thank you. And everybody who sent those. Aaron,
James,
Ryan, everybody.
Yep. James, did you want to chime in on the World Between Worlds?
No, not particularly. The only thing about that comment, Freezy, is just that it all depends on what you consider the mistakes of the sequel trilogy and what Lucasfilm considers the mistakes of the sequel trilogy. I'm sure everybody's always going to have different opinions on what were the faults in one movie, but you know, when you're looking at a movie that they plan on moving forward with as their canon, they're probably not looking to go back and be like, man, we really messed up on that one. I don't know what would be the thing that company would say, this is the one thing we want to change, which would ultimately set up like this whole butterfly effect of now we have two worlds or anything like that. Or two understandings
like Marvel
of
stuff.
The franchise. Yeah. I mean, I don't like take Infinity War, for instance. Like that movie had mistakes or things that, you know, fans didn't love, but like, I don't know that Marvel's looking at going back and trying to fix those mistakes in any way other than Lucasfilm and how they just like write a book or something that maybe makes something make a little bit more sense, or maybe just viewing it a little bit differently might help fans or something. But
so before we move on, I do want to ask you guys, because we're talking about it. If you were to decide the way the story went with Rey, whether she was a nobody, a Palpatine, or a Kenobi, which one would you have chosen? James?
Between those three, nobody. I don't mind the Palpatine story, but you know, there's gripes there. But I kind of don't like the Kenobi story.
Why? So, I was just curious because that's my pick. I've said this before that was my pick.
Yeah,
So
I don't know.
Before
it just
you
seems
comment,
like a fan theory.
Miss Sunflower in the comments did say, I wish Rey was a Kenobi. We now know Obi-Wan had a brother, and Rey could have been a descendant from that brother instead of Palpatine. So it's not a Kenobi in the sense of Kenobi, but from the Kenobi show, we learned Obi-Wan had a brother.
Yeah. The Kenobi theory to me just always felt like it was something like I don't know, like a fan theory, and like they're trying to put together the dots or something like that. And I think it kind of messes with the character of Kenobi a little bit. But I don't know, maybe not.
Okay. All right. John, what do you think?
I think in the first draft, I could be wrong. I think in the first draft of Return of the Jedi, it's revealed that like Owen is Obi-Wan's brother or something like that. in the very
Yeah,
first
that
draft.
sounds familiar.
Yeah. So I mean, Star Wars, like there was some weird stuff in these early drafts, you know. If I had to pick one, I actually been more, you know, I like the Rise of Skywalker, so I'm the hardest person to ask when it comes to the critical element of this. I like the idea of it ended with Skywalker versus Palpatine, like Vader's grandkid versus Palpatine's. I think that was cool. The dyad, and I like the aspect of you could have a really horrible, you know, parent and still achieve greatness and happiness. I think that's a really important thing for a lot of kids, and the found family thing is even stronger there. The nobody would have been fine too. Like I was saying before,
I
I
would have
agree.
been fine with the nobody over Palpatine. I think I'm like Kenobi, nobody, Palpatine.
I think I'm with James. I think that Kenobi's the worst one because it's just like way too much to explain, and then it would be like, oh, and then who had the kid, and then who had that kid, and stuff like that. Whereas Palpatine's thing from the beginning was extending his life, and his whole thing was about, you know, everlasting and immortality. So I think even though it's messed up and it caught people, it blindsided people, it makes sense for Palpatine to have done all of those things because he said that from the very beginning, is that was his obsession, was this everlasting existence. So
Cheat
cloning,
death,
cheating death, and her being an outcome of that, and wind up being the one to destroy him, I think is pretty cool.
I think at the end of the day, like when it comes down to the Rey nobody argument, like I think that one really does hold some water. And the
I would have been great with that too. Yeah,
they hoped that was the story, because I think just as a blanket thing, any Rey lineage gets messy. Whether you're going to make her Palpatine, a Skywalker, a Kenobi, an Amidala, I don't even know how that would work. You know, like whatever you want to do, you have a lot of explaining as to how the most powerful Force user who's going to take over the galaxy is somehow related to these other Force users that took over that solved all the problems 30 years prior. That just gets sticky. So the idea of just like the hopeful, like anybody can be a hero, right? Broom Kid could be a hero. I think that was just a loose ended storyline that they just could have embraced, and it would have been everybody probably would have been most happy with that overall. I don't know. But we are going to, I just want to remind everybody that we are going to be doing Ask the Resistance at the end of this segment, at the end of Resistance Report. So now is the time to start putting questions in the chat with Ask the Resistance, because we'll basically, just like we just did, embellish on those questions that you guys have. And of course, as you see, super chats jump to the front of the line, so you'll be able to do that. But make sure you tag Ask the Resistance in the chat so that we know it's a question that you want asked or answered on the show. Coming up next, though, I want to talk a little bit about actually both Skeleton Crew and the Acolyte are in process of the Skeleton Crew just finished rapping, just wrapped filming, as we saw from some of the members of the crew. And Acolyte, while correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not really sure where the process is on. I think they're still filming.
They're filming, yeah. They started in the fall. Yeah,
we've gotten some comments now, not just from Daisy, but from cast members saying, you know, this show is incredible, and it's a pleasure to be involved. And I, you know, Amanda Stenberg saying, I wish. Or I've been a Star Wars fan my entire life, and now that I've walked on set and I see the reality of it, it's insane how much work and all this goes into it, and how they're happy to be a part of it. So I don't know if you guys where we want to get started on that. John, any thoughts on either one of those stories? Skeleton Crew done, Acolyte coming on strong.
I mean, we had heard reports, and we don't know if these are true or not, of course, but about rumblings of the crew of Skeleton Crew being treated poorly or something like that. I don't know. And there's always that nervousness that happens with these Star Wars projects because of just the recent history of these things. You know, there have been Star Wars projects like Solo that are filming, and then they stop production and have to reshoot a lot of stuff. Rogue One, same exact thing, just doesn't get the same publicity. They reshot a ton of that movie. Some projects to get canned, some projects get canceled, and we've seen there have been Batgirl was completely almost 95% finished, and it's never seeing the light of day. So the fact that they
Scooby-Doo
finished it,
did you hear about that one?
No.
They made a second Scoob movie, and then they let the they canceled it, but they kept paying the cast or the people to finish the movie. So because it was all on contract, so they canceled it. They said it's never coming out, but finish your movie, feel good about it. No one will ever see it though.
Zoinks.
And they did. And they
Zoinks.
did, yeah.
Big
And they've
zoinks.
removed so many shows from their streaming service. Yeah.
Yeah, but my point is, when a Star Wars project gets to the finish line, like more than any other studio, especially because I love Star Wars so much, it's just like a yes. All right. Because now it's just post-production. Everything's in. All the actors finish their work. There may be some reshoots, sure, but principal photography is done. That's huge, especially, we heard those rumors and rumblings about this show and stuff like that. And I'm really excited about this show because it's going to be all kids. My kids are going to be able to watch it and like see themselves like on an adventure in Star Wars. And it feels, they're talking like Goonies, like 80s space adventure. I believe the creators even just called it that. These kids are like lost in space and they find this guy and they have to get back to their home planet. It's very coming of age, Spielberg style stuff. So I think all those feels are going to be there. And I think because of that, I imagine they'll bring in somebody like a John Williams to do some music. And he seems to be backtracking on this whole retirement thing. So I wouldn't mind if he tossed the theme in for this Star Wars Kids movie. But I think that's going to be a special.
It's
fun
a show though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did I say movie?
Yeah.
You did.
I have 112 fever. I'm on death's door, so I'm here just.
I was just wondering if I've been thinking about it wrong. That's why.
No, yeah, serious. My bad. But you have Jude Law, who I think is great, and I think he'll be fantastic in this show. And if you want to see him sort of like going through the galaxy with a kid, even though it's a terrible movie, check out AI. He was good in that, which is another Spielberg movie.
See the Holiday too. He's also good in that. So we're just.
Does he walk around with a kid in that?
He has 2 kids.
Well, there you go. Never heard of it.
It's twice as good as your example, John.
Yes, clearly. Yes. Any other Jude Law movies we can cite as Talented Mr. Ripley. Not a good example. I don't want to spoil it for anybody because it only came out 25 years ago. But anyway, The Acolyte I'm excited about too because we're talking about these real sets and stuff like that, like Andor. And I thought, Andor's not my favorite, but it aesthetically looked incredible. So I think we're going to see some really cool sets, as we already have sort of with this behind the scenes stuff. But I think that's going to be a really cool looking series. And I'm actually excited because it's going to be a dark side series. So we're getting Skeleton Crew, which is completely different from Acolyte. One's going to be darker, more Sith driven dark side. And the other one's going to be sort of kids in the galaxy post Return of the Jedi on a coming of age. Both of these things sound great. The Acolyte has seemed to have no issues. So I think that's going to be wrapping with no problem. So it's just good to hear these Star Wars projects running smoothly. It's always a win, in my opinion. And then it just comes to finding out more of what they're all about and eventually seeing them, which hopefully we get to hear more about them at Celebration.
Mm-hmm. Lacey?
I am just happy to know that things are moving along and progressing. I always say that, but it's so true. Just lately hearing all the cancellations and kind of like open-endedness of a lot of Star Wars projects that we'd previously heard about, to know that these projects are wrapping up or they're full steam ahead. We're getting updates from cast and crew. It's just really, really exciting. I can't wait for Skeleton Crew. I love Jude Law. I just said it. Holiday's one of my favorite movies. I think he's going to be really, really great. I love the kid aspect of it. Stranger Things is killer right now. And watching those kids grow up throughout that series has been a really big joy for me. Just seeing them kind of come up as actors and like experience their childhood into adolescence and teenage years through right before our eyes is just crazy. But I think there's a certain type of wonder that comes when you're watching a show through a child's eyes or through a young kid's stories. So to know that we're going to get these experiences that, like John was saying, our kids can then watch and feel like they're being represented on the screen and they're having their adventures is just super exciting, because at the end of the day, these movies were made for children and made for kids from George Lucas. So I like the idea of the show being made so that families can watch it together. Now, The Mandalorian currently fills that box as well, and Jon Favreau's adamantly said that it's for families to watch together. He likes hearing that families are watching it together.
Well,
so
Bad Batch 2 is going on right now.
Bad Batch, yes. Sorry, I'm
Which is a
talking
very
live
good-
action. I'm
yeah,
talking
Star
live
Wars
action.
family show where it has a kid as a main character who obviously kids would see themselves in that character and being able to live out
Totally.
the adventures as well.
Yeah, I apologize. I didn't mean to like
No,
say
yeah,
animation
yeah.
doesn't matter, but we were talking live action. So, but yeah, I can't wait to see where they go with this. I myself personally have heard from people that the set's kind of a mess. So I'm hoping that everything turns out okay. It's been kind of crazy from the rumblings that I've heard, but I just hope everything works out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I forget. There was something I was going to say. Oh, it was kind of unrelated, but we were talking about Jude Law so much. Have either of you seen The Secrets of Dumbledore?
No,
I'm a huge Harry Potter fan, and I still haven't seen this movie. And it's like
I haven't
don't
seen
know what
any of
is
those
going on.
movies.
I
You
heard
haven't
they're
seen
terrible.
any of them?
Yeah.
Yeah, no
I don't think they're
Harry,
terrible.
no problems.
They're not.
No
They're not
Harry, no
great.
Mo.
But I don't.
I
think
just
they're
found it funny
terrible.
that he goes from Jude Law to Dumbledore, that like Richard Harris that we meet. You know,
Mhm.
it's
Yeah.
quite a
Yeah,
jump.
it's definitely a lot different. Yeah, I don't know what really there can be to add to this, considering both of those stories isn't really a whole lot. I mean, I think it's kind of interesting sometimes when like we hear that a show wraps via the crew, and I'm always like, what's Lucasfilm thinking right now? Are they like, do they say don't tell anybody the show's over, and then they still have like two people that do it, and they're like, oh, we told you not to tell anybody, or did they just don't care, and like the people on the cast or the people on the crew go, like the second we're done, I'm going to be the first person to like Instagram about it because I know that's going to get picked up by outlets. Like
Mm.
what game is being played? Because it doesn't feel like a lot of people were being social about it, but the ones who did got picked up like by all these sites and stuff, and it's like,
They always do, don't they?
yeah, does Lucasfilm want them? Do they care that they do that? Are they allowed
They
to do
probably
that?
don't. They probably don't want it, but I think oftentimes what happens is someone takes a picture of their wrap gift and then sends it around, and then it ends up somewhere like Reddit. And then sometimes, like this person, they just post their own post.
But can't they just make that part of like the NDA? Like
They could.
until the show is done, or until the show's out, or we've started
But they
production,
might be
don't
done.
talk about this stuff.
But their contract might be over the moment they walk off the set, like if they're a stunt guy or a prop person or
But
whatever.
then Lucasfilm, get ahead of it and say, have your thing ready that says the Acolyte's finished, it's coming. Just make one image, post it on your Twitter officially, and
Are
then
you, are you upset about this, James? You seem upset.
no, I'm not upset. I'm always just surprised that we get about I mean, this goes back to Lucasfilm being so secretive. I'm just surprised that we hear this news. We have to learn about it from someone on the set that says, "Hey, we wrapped filming." It's free promotion for Lucasfilm to get everybody talking again. Like, why wait for a random crew member to post on their Instagram that they're done when they could just put out an image that says, "Guess what? We wrapped filming today.
I don't know.
Get excited, it's coming."
Because they don't need
out,
to.
you don't even but you say that, but they don't need to, because the crew members are doing that for them.
But what is saying we wrapped, like, really for the general audiences, like my brother's gonna be like, oh, that Star Wars show just stopped filming. When does it come out? In a year and 3 months. Why do I care right now? You know what I mean? It's for us. It's like, yeah, give us the announcement. But in the end, like, if like, I imagine they probably don't care if, like,
I mean, I don't think they're
stunt
looking
coordinator
to
is
be
like,
on Good Morning America with the Acolyte wrapped.
like if Eunice Huthar posted her episode 9 bubble jacket and was like, oh, such an awesome time working on 9, JJ wouldn't be like, ah, I don't think it's that big of a deal.
I don't know. I just say someone official, like whether it's the in that case JJ or Lucasfilm or somebody, just put out an image. I mean, we get excited when it says the movie's started filming and they put out an image.
Yeah.
First
You want
day, and they
you
post
want
a
heads to
picture
roll.
of, yeah.
You want people
What?
fired. You want people fired from the stunt.
No, I don't want people fired. I want people doing their jobs at Lucasfilm. Post images when things happen. Make it official and don't make it hearsay. Don't make crew members do your job. Anyway, I don't know, whatever. But that's all the news this week for Star Wars. But we know you guys have been asking questions in the chat. We're getting ready to head into the next segment, Ask the Resistance, although I don't have a thing for it. So.
All right, guys, it's time for Ask the Resistance. So you got Star Wars questions. We've got some Star Wars answers, and let's see what you got. So we're going to kick it off with a super chat. Thank you so much to Orion CC 1701. Thank you for the super chat. They asked, so I'm a Rose Tico fan, and I feel we were robbed of a substantive scene with her and Rey. Hoping a great Daisy and Kelly scene someday.
Super chat.
My tongue just was not operating properly. Substantive.
Mike Tyson
Anyway,
reads our super chat.
Orion, thank you so much for your super chat.
Incredible.
Really appreciate it. I'm going to kick off with this one because these guys are making fun of me. So I'm just going to go ahead and just keep talking.
Thank you.
I think Rose definitely got robbed in The Rise of Skywalker. I think hearing about the scene with her and Rey would have been really cool in the movie because we never really see them interact. So it would be nice to see those two characters together. I don't know if Kelly ever will come back. It's really dependent on what Lucasfilm wants to do and where the story is going. Because she isn't one of the main three characters like Poe, Finn, or Rey, who would then drive the story forward. But I could see her on the base or something if Rey's at the base or if they're going somewhere like that. But I guess we've seen her in Lego. We've seen her kind of in these side stories. I would love to see Kelly Marie Tran back again. But if I was to make a guess right now, probably not at this time. But I really wish we did get that deleted scene. I feel like in general, the Star Wars sequel trilogy DVDs have been lacking when it comes to DVD extras, like deleted scenes or choices that they decided to hey, this didn't fit, because they do all that work, right? They film these scenes and then they never use them. And you're like, well, I would, as a fan, I'd love to just see it, see what you did. But yeah, what do you guys think?
John?
You're not going to like my answer, Orion, and I apologize for this, but I think I agree with what Lacey said. I think seeing Rose in the future, I want to see Rose back in the future without question, because I think Kelly Marie Tran is a very good actress. I think she's, from everything you hear, she's a really good person, and she had a lot of fun, and she still is in the Star Wars family doing this ancillary things. But she was a casualty of necessity to close this trilogy, to close a saga, when people are already saying it felt rushed, it felt compacted. They had a lot of things to tie up. If you gave her the same amount of screen time she had in TLJ, you're taking away from the missing the entire trilogy. So I think she was a sacrifice of that. She also wasn't JJ's character, and I understand that. Snap Wexley disappeared in The Last Jedi. People aren't talking about the fact that Black Squadron just vanished, and Greg Grunberg talked to us about it. He didn't even get a phone call. So it goes both ways, but I understand the complaints because there were set photos and there were clearly cut scenes. It looked like they were just looking at a map, and it didn't seem like it was this big, heartfelt, emotional scene. It looked like they were doing rebel stuff in the base, but whatever it was, I'm speculating. Look at screen times in Star Wars. Lando Calrissian had 14 minutes of screen time in the entire original trilogy. Rose Tico had more of that in just The Last Jedi. Every character can't have this major role in these movies. And yeah, she had a bigger role in The Last Jedi. I personally think it would have been better if it was Poe and Finn going to Canto Bight versus let's add a character and do this. Because then you have at least two of the characters together, like in Empire Strikes Back. And I'm not saying I don't like the Rose Tico character. I just think maybe it wasn't a necessity. But then when you have her, JJ's like, I gotta get her involved. I can't just get rid of her the way Snap vanished in 7. Mm-hmm. So, and I'm a JJ guy too, so I'm going to support his decisions there. But I think just I'm trying to say this logically and from how they probably went about it from a story standpoint. And even with minimizing her role, it's still a lot of the movie, the pacing was tough and they had to make a lot of cuts. And there were probably a lot of great scenes in the movie. The Kylo and Chewie scene that everyone wanted to see, that got cut. They made a lot of hard cuts, and Rose was clearly not a priority, and I completely agree and understand why she wasn't. But like I said, having said that, I think she'll be back, and I think she'll be part of the fun adventures going forward. So I think a lot of people will feel better about that, and I hope we see her.
2 things really quick before James chimes in. One, if you can make Avatar 3.5 hours, you can make a Star Wars movie 3.5 hours. And I know that early on in November, before Rise of Skywalker came out, there was a rumbling going around of that the movie was like 4 hours or something at the first cut, which is pretty normal for a movie. They make the big full thing and then they cut it down. But my whole thing is like, if you're going to sit there and watch Avatar for 3.5 hours, and Disney is approving this to be 3.5 hours because James Cameron's like, no, this is my movie, don't touch it, then why aren't we just letting people do that with other things too? Like, why are we forcing people to cut their story down? Second, the only issue with cutting the Rose Tico Ray thing that I think a lot of people were bothered by is that one of the main images they showed at Celebration when they were having the discussion about the Rise of Skywalker with Kelly Marie Tran was a picture with her and Ray. They showed it up on the screen. Oh, okay. Yeah, they showed it up on the screen and like they like promoted it as like a thing that they were going to do, and then they cut it. So it's kind of like that false advertising thing
that was the thing where they were like just looking at Rebels maps.
They were looking at a map. Yeah.
Rebel things.
Anyway, go ahead, James.
Yeah, I hear where John's coming from, but I believe wholeheartedly that she will return. I mean, you said that, John, but like I think for different reasons. Like I think Rose Tico is the Lando of this sequel trilogy, because she made her appearance in the second movie. She had a big role in the second movie.
Lando? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. And then in the third movie, not as big of a role, but still fairly important to the overall tactics on how they were going to take out the big bad enemy. But then at no point in subsequent years did we ever say, do we ever think Billy D. Williams would return to Star Wars? Nah, probably not. It's like, yes, he will. And he's very beloved, and he it did have much to do in later stories, including now them kind of writing in Luke and Lando going on adventures together. When did Luke and Lando ever hang out in the original trilogy? But never. Do they even have like one scene? They might be in the same room, but they never talk to each other, as far as I am aware. So yeah, maybe there is some sense to, robbed of that idea of Rose and Daisy, or Rose and Ray being together. But at the same time, I absolutely think there's plenty of stories to be had about Rose and Ray doing stuff. And I think that Kelly Marie Tran would return. I mean, her only issue with it right now is because, maybe like racially fueled things on social media or whatever. I don't think it had anything to do with production or anything along those lines. And, even we didn't have it back then, but who knows what Billy D would have went through on social media being in a Star Wars movie, Yeah. So, and it's like, it's tough, but at the same time, like, when you understand the project that you're working on and what you want to do and you want to be a part of it, yeah, you be a part of it. And I think Kelly Marie Tran absolutely will be in the future.
Awesome. So do you guys want to do one more question?
Can we do 2 more? I like 3s.
Yeah, let's keep it
Two
going.
more. 2 more it is. All right. So Christian Morales, what up, Christian, aka Chris? Found out that recently. Chris. He asked, besides Solo 2, what is a surprise announcement you want out of Star Wars Celebration?
Movie
Fun.
title. Next movie.
John.
Give me deets
James.
on the next movie.
James.
Can you be more specific about movie?
Damon Lindelof. Here's the title of our next movie. Here's when it's coming out.
Interesting.
Here's our lead actor.
I don't think that's a surprise, though.
He's saying surprise. What would be something that you'd be like, oh my goodness, what?
So to me, I'll say this, like off the top of my head, because we just boom, that question just came up. If they said that they were doing an Old Republic trilogy of movies, like I think that would be nuts. That would be a surprise that I would be like, I am glad to see that. That sounds awesome. Yep.
Mine would be that Daisy's returning. I think that would be a shock for right now, and it would be a total surprise because it just doesn't seem like something they do right now. But the fact that they would then shift their plans to make that happen would be very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope they wait a little bit longer with that,
Why?
but I still think it's too soon, and there's still like that whole like negativity still a little bit, and I want like the kids to be a little older so that they can do the prequel thing and pump up the positive vibes.
That's fair. That's fair.
And the payoff would be better if we wait a few more years. You know, for me, it's just my opinion. I want her back, but
Mhm. All right. And our last question comes from Severfied Danny. Thank you, Danny. And hello, Mark, who I know is watching with Danny. She asks, if we get Daisy back in live action Star Wars, which has been a big topic for tonight, what
Yeah.
does that automatically mean we get John and Oscar too? I think yes, because they both said they'd come back if everybody agreed. I'd say
yeah. I
yes.
mean, my theory on that. I think Boyega, yes. I think I feel like he's already like maybe starting to come around some of the things he said, and Oscar Isaac I think would come back and be like the sacrificial lamb for the new, and like be that person to make us fear the new big villain, and he'll die in like the beginning of the first movie, the way he was almost going to in TFA,
Man, that
I just thought it would be so shocking if in the new movie, like it kicks off with Daisy and then all of a sudden she's in like a romantic relationship with someone else.
Poe.
Poe, Finn, anybody. Like, how interesting would that be if like the movie kicks off and she just like, okay, see you later, buddy. Kisses them, walks out, and you're like, oh, okay, all right, we're doing this. Okay.
Well, you remember the I know theory that I put out there a while back,
I
right?
hate you so much.
I don't know. This is tough for me because I think like with John and Oscar coming back, it feels very similar to what John was just saying a minute ago. Like it feels too soon. Like I feel like if you want John and Oscar and Daisy and everybody to come back and be invested in 3 more movies or whatever they plan to do with the franchise, space it out and give it some time, especially for Oscar. Because to me, like, I'm not saying that Daisy or John Boyega haven't been successful since, but Oscar, I don't think has anything to worry about. He's had hits and misses, and he's just he's on that trajectory of he's fine. He will always have a career in acting. And for me, like the other two, they haven't really had anything that's been like huge for them. Daisy, a couple like murder mystery movies. John Boyega, probably his biggest thing is the Pacific Rim sequel, but it like wasn't super well received. I think like they are capable, but I'm saying franchise wise, money making wise, they haven't had anything be like a hit. Whereas
I agree.
Oscar Isaac over here, like Dune and Marvel and everything else, right? I think he's fine. So he's probably the one that would be the most convincing to sign a contract for longevity. But I think given some time and he'd be like, yeah, I could do some more Star Wars. All right, fine. You get me on, but this soon, I don't know. That one's tough. But I think if Daisy's coming back, they would probably do it. If we're talking like this year, if we get that announcement at Celebration, Daisy's returning, I think you could expect to see them involved in some way.
I need my peanut.
Yeah. What do we got, guys? What's up?
That's it. That's it for Ask the Resistance.
All right.
Thank you guys so much for your questions. We really appreciate it. If you want to be part of the show, make sure to ask us on Twitter with hashtag Ask the Resistance, or tune in live with us in the chat, and we'll try to get you on the show. Back to you, John.
All right. Yeah. Thanks everybody for joining us live, or if you're listening on your podcast app. Either way, however you're hanging out with us, we thank you so much. We hope you had a good time listening or watching. Make sure you are subscribed to the show, as I said at the top, on your preferred podcast app. Again, our show is free. We give you 2 shows every week. That will never stop. And the channel too. We're growing slowly but steadily. So thank you to everybody who has realized we're over here now. If you've been an existing watcher on YouTube, or if you found us through our shorts, or maybe on TikTok or Instagram or wherever, our podcast is a good time. We have deep conversations, as you saw this past Monday, and then we also have some fun ones. We like to mix it up and have a good time. So make sure you subscribe because it's free. But if you want to have more of TRB, go to patreon.com/resistance broadcast. Tiers start at $5 per month to support the pod and what we do. And it allows us to not only keep doing what we're doing currently, but we're always looking to grow the podcast and expand upon what we're doing. So any and all support if you're able to. I know times are tough, so
Mhm.
I just want to say a big thank you to our existing supporters on Patreon and anyone who is willing and able to support us on Patreon. And I would be remiss if I didn't give a big shout out to our generals and spice runners on Patreon. So our generals: CARMELO, John RISI, JETTA Rosewater, Frank Grande, Darth Hurricane, Nick KRATZ, Christian Morales, Brian Smith, Matt Chitty, DANI, Mike RUMORE, Matt HEATH, Brendan McLaughlin, Count Pepto, Sneaky Zebra, Paul Sullivan, Aaron Ellington, and Diana. And yes, we have a bunch of generals with beards, but there's only one who's called General Beard, and he'll be doing a pod race on Monday that is right in the pocket with what he does for a living. You'll get what we mean when you check our episode out coming on Monday. And our Spice Runners: David PROBUS, Neil Shaw, Kendall GELNER, Ryan WAARA, Dave HORNAK, Thomas Hennessy, Andrew Staley, Jeremy Myers, and Michael Fry. So a few of you in the chat here as well. Me, you can find me on Twitter at Johnny Hoey, and my movie podcast, Just Like the Movies. We just put out an episode on Fight Club, and I actually pitched posting just 90 minutes of silence, and Mike voted it down, so it didn't work out. But anyway, James.
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram, both at Myra Trunks.
Lacey.
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Lacey Gilleran, and on TikTok at It's Lacey Gilleran.
All right. We hope everyone has a wonderful weekend. And as I mentioned, we'll be back on Monday, where we're in the heart of winter, which means it is time to revisit our episode theme called The State of Star Wars. So we'll be doing our winter 2023 edition of The State of Star Wars on Monday. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you next time right here on the Resistance broadcast. See you around, kids.